If you love seafood like we do, then you probably eat a lot of salmon, and you're probably looking for more recipes in ways that you can make salmon. Salmon's one of the most popular fish that's eaten all around the world, and today I'm going to share my recipe for salmon patties, and I think it's one of the best ways to use salmon. The thing that makes these salmon patties really stand out is that they're made with fresh salmon. Not leftover salmon, cooked salmon, canned salmon. The fresh salmon really brings it up a notch. The patties are crisp and golden on the outside and really juicy and packed with flavor on the inside. You are gonna love them. I'm Olga, the creator of Olga's Flavor Factory, where I share lots of step-by-step recipes your whole family will love, as well as meal planning, meal prepping, and practical kitchen tips, and even equipment reviews. I want all of this to help make homemade cooking easy and enjoyable. I have some beautiful fresh salmon right here in front of me. I took a fillet that was about 2 pounds and I cut the skin off and I cut the salmon into chunks like this because we're gonna put it into the food processor. The food processor is gonna give you much more even, consistent pieces if you cut up the food first. You don't want to put a big piece of salmon right into the food processor because it's gonna get stalled and it's not going to break up the fish evenly into uniform pieces. The food processor does a terrific job at breaking up seafood because seafood is very delicate and the food processor doesn't turn it into mush. So this is awesome for salmon patties. And then I've also made fish patties from other types of fish like cod or shrimp burgers. It's awesome for tasks like that. So we're just gonna load up the food processor. I'm probably gonna do this in several batches, and then I'm gonna pulse it until I get the pieces that I want. So you don't wanna turn it into mush. You want it to still have some texture and that the pieces would be uniform. Cutting the salmon into chunks also helps you not have to pulse it too long. The more you have to pulse it, the smaller the pieces will be, and the more likely it is that you're gonna turn the salmon into a puree, and that is not what we want. The salmon is ready to go. I put it in a nice big bowl so I can mix it up with the rest of the ingredients, and this is where we're gonna pack it in with lots and lots of flavor. So I have some fresh herbs. I have parsley. I've also used dill, green onions, or chives in here. You can use lots of herbs, whatever you like. You can use some dry herbs if you don't have any fresh on hand. But seriously, adding fresh herbs makes a big difference. It's so, so good. I'm telling you, these salmon patties just burst with flavor because of all of these things that we're gonna add in. Before we got started, I also finely chopped 1 onion and then I sauteed it on the stove. I added some salt and pepper and I just got it to the point where it was really soft, starting to turn golden, so it has lots of flavor. Salmon cooks through so quickly that if you would add fresh onion, the onions would not have a chance to cook through and get soft. They're still gonna be crunchy and have a lot of bite to them. They're not gonna be nice and sweet the way they are when you saute the onions first. The sauteed onions are gonna make these salmon patties taste so delicious. You don't have to use onion powder or garlic powder when you can use fresh onions and garlic. So sometimes I'll also add some garlic in with the onions, but just saute them and it's gonna have so much more flavor. It's gonna be so much more vibrant when you use fresh onions, fresh garlic, fresh herbs than if you just shake in a bunch of garlic and onion powder and some dry herbs because they're definitely not as fresh and they don't have as much flavor. We're going for a full blast of flavor here, so this is what we're using. Then we need to bind everything together. So I'm using a little bit of panko breadcrumbs. The rest of these breadcrumbs I'm gonna use to dredge the salmon patties in to give them that crisp coating. So we just need 4 tablespoons of the breadcrumbs. We don't need a lot. The salmon patties are not gonna be packed with tons of breading in them. It's just enough to bind it all together. Then we also need a little bit of mayonnaise and Dijon mustard. So this also helps to bind the salmon patties together so they don't fall apart when you cook them. And then the Dijon mustard has that bright, fresh flavor and it's acidic and it pairs so nicely with seafood. I also have some capers in here. Capers go so well with seafood too. They're nice and briny. I love the flavor combination. So if you haven't tried capers, I really recommend that you give it a try. They're really good in this recipe. I'm also gonna add in a dash of hot sauce to give it a little bit of heat. You can add just a little bit or add as much as you want to make them really nice and spicy. So that is completely up to you. The last binding agent that we have here is 1 egg. So before we add it in, I like to mix it up with a fork first because it's gonna mix in more evenly because we don't want to overmix the salmon when we're adding all the ingredients in. I'm also gonna add some lemon juice, of course, really bright and acidic as well. Like I said, there's so many flavors in these salmon patties that just complement each other so well. These onions are nice and cold by now because you don't wanna add hot onions in here because they're gonna start cooking up the salmon before we start cooking them on the stove. And lastly, we're gonna season it all with salt and pepper and mix it all together to combine. It looks so pretty with the flecks of green from the parsley in here. I'm gonna take the rest of the panko breadcrumbs, put them in this shallow bowl, and I'm gonna dredge the salmon patties in the breadcrumbs. I'm also gonna use this portion scoop because it's so handy and the salmon patties are gonna be the same size, so they're gonna cook through at the same time. For this part of the process, you wanna dampen your hands lightly. It's gonna make shaping the patties easier. And then use this portion scoop, portion out the salmon, shape it into a circle or an oval, however you want, and put it right into the breadcrumbs. You don't want the coating to be too thick, just lightly cover the salmon on both sides with the breadcrumbs. Pat them in with your hands so they don't fall off. And then place them on the plate and keep going until you do all of them. I like having them all shaped and ready to go into the skillet at the same time so that I'm not doing it at the hot stove. Make sure to pat the breadcrumbs into the salmon. If there's too much breading, then it's gonna fall off and it's gonna burn in the skillet. Turn on the skillet to medium-high heat and pour in some avocado oil and heat it up until it's nice and hot. Then add the salmon patties into the skillet. Turn down the heat to medium and cook the salmon patties until they're golden on both sides and cooked through. And they're ready to go. Piping hot, crunchy and golden on the outside, really flavorful on the inside. I mean, come on, you guys. I can't be Olga's Flavor Factory if the flavors aren't bursting in your mouth. And this is the recipe that really showcases that, I think. I like serving these with a fresh squeeze of lemon juice on top of the salmon cakes. I also have a recipe for amazing homemade tartar sauce that you can whip up in minutes. You probably have the ingredients in your house already, and it goes so well with these salmon patties. My favorite way to serve the salmon patties is with some creamy mashed potatoes and my crunchy cauliflower tomato salad. The three of those together is just perfection. Head on over to Olga's Flavor Factory to get the printable recipe of all the recipes I mentioned, and of course the salmon patties, and I hope you give them a try. Thanks for hanging out with me in the kitchen. I'll see you again next time. This is the juiciest salmon patty you will ever eat. The flavors in here are on point. Is that good? You ready to eat? Is that delicious? Yeah. Yum. How are they?
You gotta do it with the lemon. The lemon gives so much flavor.
The fresh lemon on top.
You guys have to try this recipe. This is so good. Absolutely.
Yep.
It's still crunchy, not the flavor. And we're talking about capers.
Yes, you guys, Sergi does not like capers. And my kids don't eat capers. Like if they're in something like chicken piccata, they want to eat it. But they love the salmon patties, and even Sergi approves.
I would eat capers all day inside of those cakes.
Yeah.
For sure.
If you don't know that the capers are in there, you might not even recognize that they're in there, so they're not overpowering. They just really complement all the other ingredients in there.
Yep, and that me not liking capers at all, like in a raw form or whatever, this is perfect.